Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen. We say that in the Orthodox Church over and over again throughout this resurrection season. And it is a blessed Sunday. It is New Sunday. It is the Sunday of youth. It's the Sunday of St. Thomas. It's a Sunday of our church. And it's a blessing to see everyone looking very healthy today. I think everyone had a wonderful week of eating after a week of kanyi. And hopefully 50 days of other fasting that was going on. And now to come and get a little more weight on ourselves and to enjoy this week. It is a blessed week of feasting after a lot of fasting. But what are we to do after Easter? What are we called to? As Orthodox Christians, what are we supposed to do after we celebrate the resurrection of Christ? We have gone for 40 days in the Great Lent, and then through Holy Week, we went through more fasting and more prayers, and we prayed a lot. We were in church every day during Holy Week. And so this week is kind of a vacation from church, right? But what are we to do? Right now, what are we, as we go through this Easter, this resurrection season, are we supposed to be doing something? Or is it just, we prayed enough for 50 days. We fasted enough for 50 days. Let's go do other things. Oh, I neglected watching all my television shows. Let me watch all of those this week. Or through these next days. I neglected going out and doing more. And I know it's very tempting. The sun is shining. It is a beautiful spring weather finally coming to our New Jersey area. And when you think of all these things, I know for myself, my schedule is becoming more and more busy every day because there's just so many things that we can make ourselves busy with when the sun is shining and it's nice outside and there's so much to do. But what about our spiritual lives? What about our prayer life? What about our life with God? What happens now? For those who were transformed, who were renewed during this Great Lent, I like the word renewed, because through this Great Lent, after all the fasting, after all of the prayers, after everything that we went through, hopefully you feel as if you're closer to God, that your relationship with God is now more renewed, that you are rejuvenated in that relationship. For those of us who have experienced that renewal, that transformation, that rejuvenation, for us, I know that it is difficult to just walk back into our old lives. It is difficult for us to get busy with what we were busy with before. Every night I come home and I used to, during the Great Lent, spend a good amount of time in prayer because I wouldn't be watching television. I would just be in that prayer time. And so now when I come home, I think, maybe I should I go to pray? I mean, I prayed so much. Should I still go on? It's such a busy week. There's so many other things to think about. For us, who have gone through that renewal, that question is no question at all. Because when we have been renewed in our relationship to God, we know that the power that comes through prayer, and that's why all of you who are here, you're here on this Sunday. Because you know that coming to church on a Sunday is a blessing. And you want that relationship. You want to build that relationship. So there is no question. We continue to pray even though that we are feasting. When the fast is over, it doesn't mean that the prayers are over. The prayers continue. For us who are renewed, we continue to try to live a changed life by our prayers. So that means that family prayer doesn't end. Family prayer just finds a new way of praying. It prays together and it continues through these resurrection days. But there are some of us, and I have been in this place before, where you go through the Great Lent, you go through the Holy Week, and you feel like nothing happened. You don't feel renewed. You don't feel rejuvenated. You are still looking and longing for more, and you're kind of disappointed. If you are one of those people, today is your Sunday. Because there is another person who is exactly like you. Do you know who that is? Our patron saint, St. Thomas. St. Thomas, after the resurrection, think about this. He went through over 3 years walking and living with Jesus Christ, and then Jesus Christ dies, and then St. Thomas goes, I don't know what I did for the past 3 years. He forgets what he has learned. He doesn't have the faith or the hope that he once had. And he finishes all the way through this resurrection, and all of the other disciples are happy, joyful. They are renewed. They are transformed. But St. Thomas, still doubting. We who are in that phase, that place where we doubt, where we don't feel God's closeness, where we don't feel renewed in our relationship to God, we need to look at St. Thomas. And in St. Thomas, he tested God. He tested God and said, I will not believe unless I put my finger in the nails where the nails were in his hands, or my hand in his side. And Jesus comes and shows a great miracle. A great miracle. Comes in, and St. Thomas is completely surprised. And St. Thomas says, my Lord and my God, at that miracle. Now, we're not all going to get a miraculous experience. There are people throughout their lives that have never witnessed a miracle, but they are still faithful to God. But miracles happen. You know, a couple of years ago, I had heard a story that in a church in California, there was the secretary, the trustee, and I think another managing committee member. They were in the narthex, so the door right outside of the church. And now, they're Greek Orthodox, and it was the Holy Week, during Holy Week, that they were outside the church, just in that narthex, and they were planning a couple of different things. They were talking about some of the plans for the Holy Week, and their church was going through some problems financially, and this secretary and trustee and the committee member, they were also going through some personal problems, and they were fervently praying throughout the week, and now they were in the narthex, just talking over what had to happen, the logistics of what had to happen for Holy Week. Now, if you've ever been in a Greek Orthodox church, you know that in the narthex, they have this big pit of sand. It's like a desk, and in the middle of the desk is a lot of sand. And what you do with the sand is you take a candle, and you put the candle in the sand, and you light it as a memorial for those who have departed, for any of your prayer requests. So they have the candle sitting there. So now, these men are talking, and there's nothing else going on in the church. No one else is around. And there are 3 candles that are sitting in the sand. They are not lit. And as they are talking, these men witness a great miracle. Those 3 candles are lit. No one touched it. No one lit the candle. But it was a great miracle. And one of the men told the priest, I was praying to God for a miracle because there was such problems going on in his life that all he wanted was to know that God was there. And so 3 candles were lit: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And in that miracle, those 3 men and that parish were changed. We're not always going to get a miracle. But we are called to look at the stories that we've heard of great miracles, of people who have changed their lives. And we're called to have faith and to walk in faith, to go ahead and try to believe. For those who are struggling in their faith, who are struggling in their problems, the one thing the church keeps saying is continue in prayer. We have gone through these 50 days, and to commemorate all that Jesus Christ has done during that Holy Week, we have remembered his passion, we have remembered his resurrection, and now in his resurrection, do you know what we are called to do? We are called to continue to pray. And you know what that prayer is for? That prayer is for one thing. That prayer is for the Holy Spirit. There are 50 days from Easter to Pentecost. And during those days, or to the Ascension, and during those days, we are called to pray for the Holy Spirit to bless each and every one of us. So I hope that as a family, as individuals, you continue the prayer life that you started in Holy Week, that you started in this great Lent. And even if you didn't start a prayer life during that time, I encourage you to pray every day, looking for the Holy Spirit to come and dwell in you. Because that is a miracle. When you are blessed with that Holy Spirit, when you are renewed in that Holy Spirit because you've already been blessed with it through the Holy Baptism, when you're renewed in that Holy Spirit, it is a miracle in itself. So I pray that during these days of resurrection, that you pray for that miracle to happen for you, for your family, and for this whole parish. All glory and honor to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.